Welcome to join us in this panel. The discussion is about the Southern Cameroon's question, and the talk has been about independence and federation, the return to federation. With me here is I have the leaders of the Southern Cameroon's movement in South Africa, Comrade Milton, Taka. Welcome to join us.
Thank you, Solomon.
I'm also happy to be with Derric Ndim. He's a writer and also one of the leaders of the Southern Cameroon's movement here in South Africa. You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Comrade Chair, looking at the protest which has taken place in Cameroon and abroad, what is your appraisal so far about the struggle for the rights of Cameroon, the Southern Cameroonians to be respected?
Well, to our listeners, it's important to quickly state that this is not a teacher's protest. It's not a lawyer's protest. This is a protest of the people. The Anglophone people have risen like one man and said 55 years of, marginalization, assimilation, annexation, impoverishment, and making them feel like second-class citizens in the country they call theirs is enough. So they've risen to say we must come to the round table and debate as citizens of the country and put a full stop to this kind of unacceptable vices.
Now, Derric, the talk is about the return to federation and also about independence. What do you make of those two notions, and where do you, as Cameroonians in South Africa, coordinating the movement here, actually stand?
Well, as part of the South African team, our stand from the very beginning had been to support the unions back at home. And the stand is clearly to restore a federal system of government, which was put in place in 1961 at the Fumban Conference. And this, to be very clear right now, is we want to go on the drawing board and draw out a plan where two states would coexist as equal people, as people who come with their own cultures, values and belief systems, and nowhere down the line in history again, another people would be marginalized by the other. We want to coexist. We don't want in a situation where what has happened over the past 50 years would happen again, where another is trying to overpower the other one.
Now,
yes.
Comrade Taka, the talk to is about the president who has been silent, and everybody seems to be expecting him to make a statement on the 31st of December. What do you expect to hear? Do you think anything will change?
It's shocking. Permit me, Sir Lamin, that for almost 2 years when the nation has been on a standstill, Mr. Paul Biya has not been able to realize that the right thing to do as a leader of your people is to leave Yaoundé Vomeka wherever he is and go down to Anglophones, the previous West Cameroonians, Southern Cameroonians, and say, you have risen like one man, and I think this is very serious. Let's sit down as a family and decide where the future of our country will go. The reality is, not many people expect Mr. Biya to say anything on the 31st of December. And all that would do is trigger the anger and move this revolution, the people's revolution, to an uncontrollable level.
So you expect him to at least address the issue, and if he doesn't address it, then the people might decide to do what they want to do to achieve their plans.
The very least the president can do at this moment is to address the people. In fact, personally, I would expect him to address the people of the Southern Cameroons earlier than the 31st, because what he does on the 31st is tradition. He addresses the country every 31st. And this is not a matter of addressing the country. This is a matter of addressing a people who have raised and stood in front of the government and said, enough is enough. So I just think it's in order for the president to not only address this issue on the 31st. The president should come out even tonight, even tomorrow, earlier than the 31st, and tell the people of the Southern Cameroons that I've heard your cry as a leader, and I'm going to look into them, and this is what I'm going to do. He should stop sending ministers with conflicting ideas to come out, and one saying the other thing and the other one taking the other route, because they're confusing people, and these people are supposed to be leaders.
And Solomon, remember, the problem on the table is a francophonization policy, which is traced back to 1961. And it's interesting that every sphere sector of the Anglophone society has said 55 years of pressing us down and making us feel like second-class citizens cannot continue.
Yeah.
It is amazing
Absolutely.
that people are waiting for the president to talk on the 31st. I expected
So he
that
should have
man
spoken
to have spoken long
earlier.
before now.
Okay. Now, there is a build-up to some protests at home and abroad on the 2nd of January. And looking at the consortium and the way the protest demonstrations has been going on, do you think everything will move as planned by the teachers? How do you assess the consortium so far?
We have full confidence in the consortium, led by Barrister Nkongo Bala Agbo. Full confidence, because these are people who have proven over 2 months that they're consistent. They began with sectorial demands and then realized that in reality, this is not just about a sector. It's about a pupil. The African Court has clearly said Anglophones are a pupil. We came from a state.
Yeah.
And they listen to the voice of the pupil and the demand we put in on the table, and they have the backing of South Africa, is that government must negotiate with the consortium as the representatives of the Southern Cameroon.
Now, the consortium, as he's saying, represents the voice of the people. Would it be easy to distinguish between the two? The problems raised by the lawyers and teachers, and now the consortium is coming in, still made up of people who are lawyers and teachers, and as well as other Cameroonians. Do you think the consortium will really be able to handle this issue to a logical end?
I think every Southern Cameroonian should understand that putting together the consortium was for the lawyers and the teachers and other civil societies to unions to consolidate under one leadership, so that we can effectively manage resources and effectively, put plans in place so that we can sustain this pressure we are putting on the government, so that we can succeed together as a unit. So the consortium as a unit, and I would beg on every Cameroonian to listen to the consortium, reach out to the consortium, help where you can, because they are people like you and me and they need help.
May I equally add that government should not only negotiate with the consortium, they must negotiate with SCNC leaders, because this is the same fight. These people had long tabled the demand for Anglophone marginalization to be discussed on the table, and they were castigated as criminals. You cannot lock people who have free speech on what they consider a legitimate democratic
And the president
grounds.
said, we do not have to hide in the bush anymore
Yes.
to express our views.
Yes.
It is the same president who said so.
Yes, so the SCNC are not at odds with the position we stand for, or we are at odds with what they stand for. We have a common goal. The common goal is that the Anglophone position can never be like it's been in the last 55 years. It must stop.
Now, I want to come to the issue of protest demonstrations, the way they have been handled in Cameroon. If you look at South Africa, we see how protesters have been protected by the police, and we see how the protest goes on smoothly more often. In the context of Cameroon, we see how people are beaten, humiliated. Well, what's wrong with our own system? I want to ask you from your own observation as people who have been organizing protests here in South Africa. Maybe Derric will want to speak on that.
Well, it's a bit childish when you watch footage of protests in Cameroon, where military officials come out and they become the law. One of the issues with civil law and common law is that in the common law system, you have to be innocent until proven guilty. And the civil law, and it's a mistranslation because I asked a French friend of mine, and he said, no, there's nothing like that in the civil law. According to Cameroon, how they practice the civil law is once you are seen as, once somebody identifies you as somebody who has caused trouble, you become guilty until you prove yourself innocent. That's why police go out and they just beat people on the streets.
Yeah.
I mean, if I do something wrong, you have to charge me. You have to judge me, and if I'm wrong, then you condemn me. Then I face punishment. But they punish people up front, and we want to call on the government. That is police brutality, and it's been seen all over the world. And the Cameroon government must bring these people to book. The rape incident in Boya is something that we frown on, and we are going to do everything in our power to bring these people to book, even if it comes to holding up to the governor accountable. That we would do in international courts, because it is wrong at every level of it.
Somebody was talking about maybe redefining or rethinking the kind of training they give to our security forces. Do you share that view, Comrade, as we
Well,
be wrapping up?
Perhaps let me respond to that using the following words. What happened in Boya was carnage of the worst proportion, not seen in anything called a democracy. What happened in Kumba and in Bamenda, those were point-blank executions by military men called forces of law and order,
Yeah.
we all know we could better describe them as forces of disorder and lawlessness. So the reality is, we need to look back into the fabric of our society and say, what does the leadership call right and wrong? I don't see it much as a problem from the military. I see it as a problem from the commanders. It's a national policy.
Okay, now the other issue which the consortium raised in their communique dated December 21, 2016 is that for discussion to take place, all those arrested must be released. Is that possible?
Yes. That's an unconditional demand that we have made it in South Africa, here in a town meeting, at a protest march. We have 5 key demands with asked government, and they must respect every single one of them.
Which are?
Demand number 1 is an immediate release of anybody locked up for free thinking as a Southern Cameroonian because of this struggle. Immediate and unconditional.
Yes.
Secondly, we do have people who are missing. Those people must be brought to the fore. Thirdly, anybody, state official, military personnel, gendarme involved in the massacre of Southern Cameroonians must be tried in the court of justice, and justice must prevail.
Yeah.
If it doesn't prevail today, we are telling them that we will ensure that justice wins someday.
We are the fourth point.
The fourth point is anybody who was wounded by this must be fully funded by government, because it was a very irresponsible act of government. And lastly, government must negotiate or go on the dialogue table with consortium leaders as well as SCNC leaders. That's unconditional for us to forge ahead. And most importantly, protect the leaders. We are telling the Cameroon government that if any of them is locked up, if any of them is massacred, we will hold government accountable. Because ministers like Minister Atanganji have already threatened some of them that they would face the death penalty and things like that.
So, Derric, with the 5 points he raised, maybe you want to say last word before we come back to him for a summary of the way forward in this Anglophone struggle.
I think his point on, we want to see government officials at the highest level, that is the president and the prime minister, coming out and saying the forces of law and disorder, lawlessness and disorder, as Milton rightly puts them, that they have been, what they have done in Bamenda, Kumba and Boya, it's wrong. And they should hold those people to book. We want to see the VC of Boya held accountable. We want to see the governor of the Southwest Province, the duos that are sending letters threatening teachers to go back to classrooms. It is irresponsible for leaders. We want to see those people called to book by this government. And releasing people that have been held because of the strike unconditionally, it's show of good faith. And if the Cameroon government can't do that, then I'm sorry, they are not ready. They are not ready to go on the table, and this would go on. And this would go on, and we'll follow every legal international recourse to make sure that we as a people, we are going to come out of this. There's no way we are going to stop without winning.
Konoche, your last word. Maybe we want to discuss on how the future protests are going to take place, because the observation is that people take to the streets, security forces brutalize, use live ammunition then. So there was talk about maybe some kind of ghost town. Is that the way you expect the protest to take place on January 1 as announced severally by the protest organizers? Or you expect maybe another form of protest given the kind of brutality with which we've been witness to for the past 2 months?
Well, the protest will go on until the demands of the Southern Cameroonians are met. They will go on in dual fashion. There will be ghost towns, so that government understands that we mean business, and there will be street protests because it's a democratic right. I mean, Cameroon is a signatory to many international charters, including the UN. We are telling our people that as members who subscribe to the ideals of the consortium, all protests should be peaceful.
Okay.
All protests should be peaceful. We are calling upon government to do the right thing as civilized government. Get into the negotiation table so that we can get into the nitty-gritties of the problem. If you don't fix the problem today, it will rise again tomorrow. Any wise leader would fix it today. That's my last word.
Thank you, Derric, you, Jim, and Milton, Taka. They are all leaders of the Southern Cameroon movement here in South Africa. We thank them for their time. We do hope you enjoyed the discussion. I am Solomon Amabo. Hope to be with you some other time as discussions on the Southern Cameroon struggle continue. We thank you so much for watching.